In this article, we will discuss the Peloponnesian War, which began around 430 BC. This war is a very important war in terms of current world history. The Peloponnesian War was a huge war in ancient Greece's history that lasted a really long time, causing a big split among the Greek cities. Athens and Sparta, two big cities, started this war because they were very different from each other, and were trying to control more land and people. Athens was good at sea battles and had lots of friends, but Sparta, which was very strong on land, felt scared and made its own group, the Peloponnesian League, to fight back. They fought from 431 B. Athens and Sparta were fighting not just to see who was stronger, but because they had different ideas and lifestyles. Athens liked everyone having a say in politics, and they enjoyed things like art and culture, but Sparta was all about being tough and focusing on fighting skills. Athens had meetings where people voted, but in Sparta, only a few leaders decided everything. It was hard for two places that were so different to get along, so they ended up fighting. This war went on for 27 years because neither side could win completely. Athens was better fighting on the water, and Sparta was better on land. Sometimes they got so tired that they stopped fighting and tried to make peace, but the war always started again. Like this one time, Athens tried to take over Sicily, but it went really badly for them. However, they didn't give up and kept on fighting. Sparta got help from Persia with money for the war, and got stronger against Athens. This war made both cities really tired and finally ended with Sparta winning. The Peloponnesian War was a battle of wits and strength between the ancient Greek city-states of Athens and Sparta. Historian Thucydides wrote about how they each played to their strengths. Athens had a mighty navy that they used to cut off supplies to their enemies by sea, and Sparta had strong soldiers who could take over land by force. They didn't just fight on the battlefield, they also made and broke alliances with other cities, and sometimes even engaged in deception to gain an advantage. Athens used its sea power to surround and block Sparta's ports, trying to choke off Sparta's resources. Sparta, with its powerful army, would march into Athenian territory, taking control of the land. Both cities used their strengths in a sort of chess game that dragged on the war. Building alliances was like a game of trust and betrayal. Both Athens and Sparta had groups of allies. Athens led a group of city-states called the Delian League, and Sparta had a group called the Peloponnesian League. As the war went on, some cities switched sides. A big shock was when Sparta got help from the Persian Empire, which was a major power back then. These moves and counter-moves, like in a game of strategy, were what made the war so long and complicated. In the Peloponnesian War, both Athens and Sparta fought in several notable battles using clever tactics. At the Battle of Syracuse, a fictional example, the Athenian forces faced a huge loss against the Spartans. The Athenians were far from home, ran low on supplies, and the Spartans got back up at just the right time. This defeat really shook Athens' reputation as a naval force to be reckoned with. It shows us how unpredictable war can be, and the risks involved in far-off battles. The Battle of Amphipolis was another turning point, where the Athenians, under the inexperienced leader, Creon, were outsmarted by the strategic Spartan general Thucydides. The Spartans caught the Athenians off guard with surprise attacks, causing a significant loss for Athens. This battle highlighted the importance of having a smart and experienced military leader. Naval battles were transformed by the introduction of triremes, ancient ships with 3 rows of oars. They were faster and easier to maneuver, allowing the Athenians to outflank, which means to move around and attack the side of an enemy ship, similar to a player getting past an opponent in basketball. The Athenians could hit enemy ships from the side with a lot of force using these triremes, changing the game of naval warfare. In any battle, the actions of courageous leaders and the unpredictable twists can really change the outcome. For instance, the legendary stand of King Leonidas at the Battle of Thermopylae inspired all of Greece and motivated the Spartan soldiers to keep fighting. So, it's not just the number of soldiers or the weapons that count in war, but also the brave decisions and pivotal moments that can lead to victory or defeat. War can change a lot more than just who controls a territory. It can also transform the arts, the way people think, and the kinds of stories they tell. In ancient Greece, the difficult times of war led artists to create works that showed life more realistically, with all its struggles and emotions. A famous playwright named Euripides wrote plays that showed how tough war was on people, especially in one called The Women of Troy. During this time, philosophers like Socrates were the thinkers of society, kind of like the really good teachers who really make you think. They used debates and questions to help people figure out what was morally right. especially when things were so uncertain during war. Socrates had a special way of teaching by asking questions that made you come up with your own answers, pushing you to really understand what you didn't know. After the wars, Greece's politics were a bit of a mess. Democracy wasn't as strong, and the rich and some rulers with absolute power took over. Despite all this, the Greeks kept making big strides in art and science. After a while, a guy named Alexander the Great came along and conquered a lot of places, mixing Greek culture with that of the East, creating a whole new blend called Hellenistic culture. So even though the wars caused a lot of chaos, they also opened the door to new ideas and knowledge that would last for centuries. Have you ever heard of the Thucydides trap? It's like when in school, the most popular student feels threatened by the new kid, and there's tension. Historically, this happened with whole countries, like with ancient Athens and Sparta. Sparta was like the popular student and got worried when Athens, the new kid, started to get more powerful. This tension led to a big war called the Peloponnesian War. The Thucydides trap shows us that when one country gets more powerful, it can make other countries nervous and can lead to conflicts. Looking back at ancient wars can teach us a lot about our world today. The same kind of rivalry and competition that happened between countries long ago still happens today. Think about it like two sports teams always competing to be number one. A big example from not too long ago is the Cold War, where the United States and the Soviet Union were like those competing teams. By studying these ancient and more recent conflicts, we can better understand how countries interact and sometimes clash with each other. History isn't just told stories, it's full of lessons on how to get along and avoid fighting. In the past, many wars started because countries didn't talk to each other enough or understand each other, which led to huge mistakes. Right before World War I, for example, countries were not communicating well, and it caused a lot of confusion and fear. History has shown us that to keep peace, countries need to talk and try to see things from the other's point of view. It's like in school if two students are having a misunderstanding, talking it out can solve things before they get out of hand. In this article, we discuss the Peloponnesian War, which began around 430 BC. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and like this video. History Spectrum.